I started a business with zero capital, zero contacts, and zero excuses. I built that business up to the point where I serviced over a couple hundred different clients this year, sold that business, and got my top employee, who I mentored, to make his first 6 figures he's ever made in his entire life with no sales, marketing, or business experience. Since selling that business, I've moved to Nanaimo, a city on the island where I know absolutely nobody, so I can reduplicate those same results with zero contacts, zero capital, zero excuses, just building a business in 365 days. These are 26 different lessons and failures that I learned in 2025. I've been able to break down these 26 different lessons into 4 different categories. So if there's one of these categories that resonate with you more, feel free to fast forward to them. I break down the category into mindset, people, productivity, and leadership. All right, category number 1 is mindset, and the first one is proof over promise. Leaving 2024 and entering into 2025, I learned quite quickly that it doesn't matter what you've accomplished, what you have in your resume, and or what you have accomplished as your goals. People will always question and scrutinize you and what you offer, unless you have documentation, testimonies, or proof. I would like to believe I've accomplished a decent amount of things. I have knocked over 500,000 doors. I have landed thousands of jobs over the cold call. I've hired and trained hundreds and hundreds of different sales reps. I've been able to generate multiple 6-figure earners. I've worked for the likes of Grant Cardone, Paul Getter, Brandon Dawson, whole bunch of people, but none of that really matters unless I have the proof and the documentation that it happened. A lot of you guys would hear that as I'm speaking in front of you guys right now, and you guys would be like, okay, prove it. They're exactly right. We, as a person who is creating an offer or producing some sort of value, it is our job to showcase the proof over the promise. And I often find a lot of my competition getting bitter and sour. Heck, I was bitter and sour at the beginning of this year, being like, man, like, why don't people believe me? Or why do I not have more of a followership? Or why am I not viral yet? But that's just because I don't have documentation that I've done it before. So therefore, there's no reason for you to believe me. And so that is actually the premise of why I moved to the island, or I should say one of the reasons why I moved to the island, so I can redo this whole process of being able to grow and scale a business from scratch with no capital, no contacts, no excuses, and showcase the proof of the promise. I want to eliminate the naysayers. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I don't believe you can do it. Well, you don't need to believe me. The documentation and the proof is out there. Just watch my video or watch YouTube or watch Instagram. And with enough proof, you will then just become undeniable. And the ability to just almost rub that into someone's face is going to be somewhat bittersweet. That I can just be in a place where it's like, I don't need to defend myself anymore. I have so much evidence and proof that it would be silly for you to deny me, to not believe that when I say something, that there's no reason for you to have a disconnect behind that, because there's just so much evidence. The dream outcome in the value equation only matters if you have the perceived likeliness you're able to accomplish said outcome. If you can't give the perception of the proof over the promise that you're able to accomplish it, also known as trust, then you're not going to be able to land a deal, because anybody can promise nonsense. To be able to deliver the proof that you've already done it before, that's another thing. And so I just want to get into a place where I can just showcase the proof over the promise. Number 2, master the mundane. I learned in my pressure washing industry that it is more important for you to master the mundane than it is for you to keep chasing something that is sexy. I had this pressure washing business. I already done it before. I did it pre-COVID. I had a big team We were traveling across the country, we were knocking a whole bunch of doors, and we were making a very consistent, decent income. I sold that business because I got tired of it. Nothing else. I wasn't losing money. I simply just got tired of it. I wanted to exercise my brain more by doing something different or doing something excitable or what I thought the marketplace deemed as sexy, which is being like a digital nomad, traveling with your laptop and just being behind your computer, traveling and being on a beach, being able to make an income. That appealed to me. And so I was trying to chase that dream instead of just chasing the thing that was already working. This was a major mistake because once I sold that business and I got back and I got into the digital nomad space, I already right away from the top, I made significantly less money because I had to start completely from scratch. I had no regular customers. I had no proof of concept. I was the new guy on the block. And so I had to build up my reputation, which takes time. Additionally, I then had to learn all these new things, and new takes more time. If I just kept doing the same thing, I would have made more money, but I would have gained more skills. I would have became more disciplined, and all of these actions would have compounded. And this is another thing I learned, is that the people who were consistent and just stayed in their lane, they are so much further ahead now. When I got into the space, they were like behind me, but they stayed consistent. And when I got back into the space, they're like significantly light years ahead of me. Like that freaking hurts my ego because it's like, where the heck would I have been if I just stayed in it, right? Like I would have been so much further than where I am now, where I have to start all over again in a brand new city so I can document it and hopefully showcase more evidence and proof that I know how to do this, which I do, but you don't believe me because you don't know who the heck I am and there's no proof of concept. So I'll have to do it all over again. Versus if I just stayed in it and just documented from the beginning, who knows where I would be. Anyways, I don't hold regret, but rather just this lesson just like really stings and it really lands that, yeah, you don't need to always think about like, oh, what's the new thing you need to do? You just need to keep doing what you're doing, and you're gonna build so much brand equity with your existing clients to the point where new clients are gonna recognize that like, oh, like this guy's the guy, and you're gonna get tons of referrals. So master the mundane. Number 3, fear only exists in the vague. This one really landed with me because I was in a space where I used to have a lot of fear getting into this business, right? I used to look down on door to door, but rather I only looked down on it because I didn't know what it was about. And secretly, my insecurities said, look down on something for the things you're afraid of. But when I got into the space, I started to recognize that you can only be afraid of the things that you don't know what you don't know. But the more you get a sense of reality of what that monster looks like, he looks more like a kitty cat than a tiger in the darkness. That sounds weird and gay, but my point still stands is you can only be afraid of what's vague. If you get into the granulars and you put a magnifying glass against the thing that you deem as what you are afraid of or you have fear, and you start giving it a face, it just sort of evaporates. Like for example, if you were to say, I'm afraid of door to door, and ask yourself why, then you would have to be forced to answer, I'm afraid of, looking like a fool. And then you would ask yourself, well, why is that important to you? Why do you care not looking like a fool to a stranger? Well, I don't want to say, the wrong script and I don't want to look silly. Okay, so we understand what silly might look like, that you aren't saying the right scripts, but why does that matter in front of a stranger? And you get to the point where you are going to stop aiming for your goals and dreams because you're worried about a stranger criticizing you when that stranger actually has no cause and effect for you even getting your goals and dreams to begin with, but they're actually going to become the gatekeeper from you accomplishing your goals and dreams? Like when you actually break down what you're afraid of, then you start realizing and giving yourself permission, like, you're right. I actually don't give a shit about this person. I don't even know what this person's name is. And so why should I let this person, this nameless person, stop me from getting closer to my goal, right? And the bigger the goal, the less you care about what Joe Blow even has to say about you or think about you to begin with, right? Get detailed on the things that you're afraid of. Your fear will start to evaporate, and then you start probably taking more action. Number 4, model the rise and not the peak. Oh, I love this one. I remember when I sold this business, I got into the space of digital nomad, and I started to learn from people who were in this space already and just crushing it, making 6 figures a month, making 7 figures a month. And I started to adopt the premise that you should adopt the behaviors of successful people, which is true as well as not true. As much as you should adopt the behaviors of a successful person, you should adopt the behaviors of what they were doing to rise up, not what they're already doing when they landed at the peak. Because what they're doing now, the position they've afforded affords them to take those actions versus the actions that they did to get to that position. I would see some of my mentors, look at them and see that they were wearing a whole bunch of name brands, and they wore, nice this, nice that. They were driving nice cars, living in nice houses. And I wanted to adopt that because I thought you needed to have that in order to be successful. But they were already at a level of success where they could afford that for themselves. And I had to stretch and get into an uncomfortable position that actually took away from the resources that I would have used to be able to build myself into that space. You don't buy a Louis Vuitton bag so you can be a successful person. You become a successful person and then you can afford the Louis Vuitton bag. Model the rise, not the peak. Number 5, we don't lack motivation, we lack clarity. This one lands pretty strong, okay? If there's any single time where you might feel depressed or you might feel down in the dumps because you feel like you're lacking motivation, well, depression is the sensation that you have no options and you lack motivation, but rather you're just lacking clarity of what step 1 might look like, right? If you have a framework of knowing exactly what step 1 looks like, it'll be magical. You'll have the activity and the oomph and the gumption to be able to just go out there and start. The more clarity you have, the more motivation you have, okay? Clarity is understanding what to do, when to do it, how to do it, with what resources, what tools, and it'll just give you permission to just get started. I find most people, they have a certain amount of clarity at a certain threshold, and then it stops because they don't know or don't have clarity on what the next step is. And so they rely too heavily on a podcast or music or whatever to just give them enough energy to take action again, but then they lose motivation again. But it's not because they weren't motivated to begin with, it's just they lost clarity on what the next step is and they just give up. This shows up in my life quite a bit because I realize that where I may feel like I'm lacking motivation, I just got to be honest with myself and ask myself, what is it that I don't know, right? What is the next step that I don't understand? And whatever that next step is, now I get it, like I could be the first person to admit, like you don't know what you don't know, but you got to be honest that, okay, I know up until this point, I don't even know what I don't know for the next step. So how do you find out what that is? How do you get clarity? Go and ask people who have already accomplished it. Okay? Reach out to people. Reach out to those mentors. Reach out to people online. The world is your oyster. Just message people, talk to people, shake hands, call them, whatever it might take. And if anything is worth having, it's worth spending. You might have to pay money to overcome this obstruction, and it'll be worth it, because what is your choice? To just stay unmotivated and never take action again, or spend money and overcome it, and then all of a sudden you get this massive breakthrough, and then all of a sudden you just launch yourself to the moon? Because you might be fine with step 1 through step 6, and you might be missing step 7, but after you accomplish step 7, step 8 to step 12 might also be clear, but it's just step 7 you're missing. Find out how to do that, and then all of a sudden you'll find motivation. So we don't lack motivation, we lack clarity. Number 6, give time. This was my theme for 2025, patience. That's it, okay? I've always been an impatient person, and I started to realize that I'm not lacking the skill sets, I'm not lacking the reps, I'm not lacking opportunity, I'm only lacking time. And if I gave myself a long enough time horizon, I probably would yield that dream result. But for some reason, I am impatient. I shouldn't. I should give time more time, right? I think, oh, this script isn't working, I need to change it. But rather, if I just gave it a little bit more breathing room and gave it more time, you would then find out there was nothing wrong with your script. You just needed a longer time horizon. I might think, oh, the gym isn't working, or the script isn't working, or that model isn't working for my business, or the service that I'm providing isn't working. When really, maybe you don't have enough sample size and you just need to do reps. In order to do more reps, you need more time. Just because you do an action, the universe doesn't just reward you right away saying that it's going to happen right away. Sometimes you got to be able to showcase like a test that you're disciplined enough to wait. Right? And that is a pretty tough lesson for me to learn, because all my life I've always just wanted results right away. I want to get paid immediately after I finish, but rather, like, if you just give time a little bit more time, it's you will eventually accomplish that dream outcome. And number 7, people don't care about your efforts, they only care about your results. This one, like, really hits home for me, because I've always been a person who really puts like 120% effort into anything. And I've always wanted to be recognized for my efforts. But this year I've learned that, like, nobody really gives a fuck until you accomplish the result. I always look at some of my mentors and I'm like, man, the thing that I care more about them is just how much work they put in, and how much they're willing to do more than the other person. But then I also have to be honest with myself, is why do I even look up to them to begin with? And it's because they yielded some sort of result that I deemed as extraordinary. And then after I deemed them as extraordinary, then it's gave me permission to then recognize the other byproducts of what they're accomplishing beyond the accomplishment, which is their effort. And then I just reverse engineered that, and now putting that expectation on myself is that people only give a fuck about you at the beginning and at the end, right? The American dream is, oh, you're starting off new, you're betting on yourself, hallelujah, go and get it done. Everybody roots for you at the very beginning, right? And then once you say you're going to do the thing and then you actually accomplish that and you actually hit your goal, then people give a fuck about you at the end. But in the middle, like at the middle of the marathon, right? At the beginning of the marathon, right when you leave the freaking starting line, everyone's cheering and blowing the horns and taking pictures, and that's great. And everybody's at the end of the marathon, right when you cross the finish line. But there's barely anybody in the middle of the marathon, right? And this is a good analogy for life. People care when you're just starting off and you're betting on yourself for the very first time. You're quitting your job and you're becoming an entrepreneur for the very first time in your life. And then at the very end, when you hit your first million or you hit your ideal goal and you told the universe you're going to hit this goal and then you actually hit that goal, everyone cheers for you at the end. But the time when you actually needed most wasn't at the end and it wasn't at the beginning. It was in the middle when you feel like you're on your final mile and then you turn around the corner and there was no way that you're actually at the end of the mile, at the end of the marathon. There's another freaking endless race that you're going through and you don't even know when the finish line is. That is when you actually need your people. After I recognized that, then I got to be honest with myself and I got to just set a proper expectation that is okay. It is okay that people aren't going to reward me for my efforts yet. And I just need to accomplish it. I just need to do the thing that everybody wants as their idea of what a finished product looks like. I need to go and accomplish that. And then it just gives more people permission to. So that means that I have actually control of what that might look like instead of just putting blame onto the world, because you give control on the things you point blame at. And so recognizing that, I'm going to just be more results driven and no longer focus on, why are people not recognizing my effort? Because that time will come after I accomplish the results. And I'm noticing that. I'm noticing that in my own life right now, that I've hit certain milestones that I used to think were mountains. And as I'm accomplishing it and just crowning the peak of some of these milestones, in my close circle, they're recognizing the leaps and bounds that I finally have hit it. And now there's people in my corner. And now doing this revolution all over again and starting all over again, I now have more people in my corner this time around than I did last time. And I truly believe the more results you yield, the more people in your corner. The more people in your corner, the easier it should get. People don't care about your efforts. They only care about your results. And that's okay. All right, second category is people. This one was like really massive for me because I've always looked at life as just like a solo game, but the more and more I play the game of life and the game of business, the more I start recognizing it's about the game of people. So, which brings me to the first one, which is the 5 categories of friends. I started recognizing quite early I started recognizing too late this year, the people that I should have in my life, because I started just having so many different people in my life that actually didn't meet certain categories. And when I've been able to classify certain categories, it gives me permission to be able to keep people in my life and actually give me permission to actually remove people from my life. So the 5 categories of friends, okay? The first category are going to be the people who are always thinking about the past. Like the people that always say, do you remember the good old days? Or do you remember back in high school or that one party or whatever? They're just always thinking backwards, right? The second category of friend are the people who are only thinking about the present. And these are people who are thinking about your, do you remember or did you hear what Sally did? Or, did Ben do XYZ? Or can you believe that Bob did blah, 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 blah. Like they're just talking about other people in the present. And that is, another word is gossiping, right? The third category are people who are forward thinking, people that have ideas, right? One day I'm going to accomplish this, or I have a dream of accomplishing that one day, or one day we're going to go here. People that are thinking about the future. The fourth category of friend is the person who's able to take those ideas of the future and bring it into the present. These are people who are doers, people that will do actions with you, that they will take action with you. The fifth category are the people that is willing to spend, make, and lose money with you. Okay? Because if you're willing to make, spend, and lose money, that means well, if you just think about what people buy where their values lie, right? People don't buy things that their values don't align with. And if I can spend money with you, make money with you, and lose money with you, then there's a good chance our values are aligned. And so recognizing the 5 categories of friends, I have decided I'm going to only allow category 4 and category 5 in my life. People I'm willing to do things with and people I'm willing to make money, lose money, and spend money with. Hire the people that are correct, not the people that are convenient. This lesson, man, I wish I learned it so much earlier this year because I am in a place where I feel like I have to reset, and I feel like I didn't need to reset if I just hired the people that were correct, okay? There were some people I placed in my business that were probably just too close to my proximity, not close to the skill level or the experience level of what that position probably actually needed. I was hiring people who was just easier. All right, it was just easier because I already know you. It's easier because you're already close proximity to me. It was easier because I have a relationship already established with you. When really, I should have done a lot more discernment, probably let go people a lot quicker, and allowed those relationships to actually sour my business. Because I was hiring people based off of my personal relationship with them, and then they didn't even hold the same values in my business, and so therefore it actually suffered. Like I had tons of certain individuals in my business made me have more redos than I needed. There's certain individuals that didn't have a certain quality control. Just tons of redos, certain refunds, extra work, double work, all these other things that ultimately cost me significantly more than if I just didn't have that person right away, went through so many more interviews and just found the right person to begin with. They often say talent is the most expensive thing in your business. I'm starting to recognize that now because a redo or double work costs significantly more than you just paying a guy an extra $3 an hour and just making sure you get the right guy to begin with. Stop falling in love with potential. I remember my mentor, Angel Carmona, I was talking to him about one of my employees that I thought this guy was the guy and he's able to do X, Y, Z and he's yada, yada, yada. And he brought me to the side and said, why are you giving this person so much praise? And I said, well, because he's sort of getting primed to be the guy. And he said, yeah, but I think when you are giving him all this praise, he hasn't earned it yet, but he is acting like he did earn it. And so therefore he's going to eventually become a diva. I thought about that and it's like, I don't know. Like, I think this guy's the guy. Is he there yet today? No, but will he be there tomorrow? I don't know, maybe. And sure enough, Angel, my mentor was right. He became a diva. And then I had to exit him out of my business. And it's because I fell more in love with his potential than what he was actually producing. And I was thinking, oh, his production was trending upwards. But at some point it started to plateau. And it started to plateau because I started giving him more praise that was actually unearned. And so maybe this is a lesson on not giving out the right type of praise when it's not earned, but I truly believe that regardless if I was giving him praise or not, at some point it was going to plateau regardless, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything, and this person has shown a lot of evidence that eventually they plateaued, not just in my business, but all the businesses they've been a part of. And instead of recognizing that, I just fell in love with what he could be instead of what he was. So that was a very expensive mistake, and that probably put my business like 6 months behind. Number 4, hire missionaries, not mercenaries. You can only hire 2 different types of people in life. There's going to be missionaries and there's going to be mercenaries. What is the difference? A mercenary is going to accept a position simply just based off of dollars and dollars alone, right? There's everybody and their niece knows somebody who is like, oh, I deserve an extra, $5 an hour because my industry pays, $40 an hour. So therefore I deserve $40 an hour. But it's like they themselves haven't really shown any proof that they've been able to do it, or they once upon a time they were part of a company making $40 an hour, whatever the number is. But then you have to ask yourself, like, dude, why don't you work there now, right? Why did that relationship not work out? Did you suck at your job, or are you just hard to work with, right? Either way, both is the formula why I don't want you in my business. People that are just always looking for money are like a serious threat in your business, because not only, like, I get it, we're all driven financially. I get that. But if that is the only motive, then those are the people you got to be careful, because if you are going to stick your neck out for somebody and you're going to pay the bill to be able to get that person in your business, understand that there's an expectation that if someone comes around and headhunts that employee and is willing to offer them an extra dollar more an hour, there's a good chance they're going to leave your ass and go take that extra dollar an hour, because they're not loyal to your business. They're not loyal to the mission. They're only loyal to the dollar. Okay. On the contrary, the missionaries, those are the people who are willing to die on the mission, not the dollar. And those are the people not only are going to be worth every single dollar, you're going to be more open to even giving them more raises and happily giving them more money, because they're standing on the values of your business in front of your customers, right? You want to make sure that, like, okay, the way I treat my customer is the way that I want my employee to treat that customer. But there's going to be certain people, the missionaries, that would, but the mercenaries won't, right? There was a person in my business who constantly would get into fights with my clients, and that person was also the mercenary. That was the person who was constantly asking for me for raises, constantly asking me to get off early but get paid more, constantly asking for overtime, constantly nickeling and diming the payroll. That is a person who's only interested in money. They're not loyal to you. They're not loyal to your opportunity. If there's any business that's willing to pay them an extra 50 cents, they'll take that opportunity, and they did. Right? Like, this person bit me in the ass that I put them in a very, a position that I needed them at a certain time. And that person wasn't reliable, because they're just going to be reliable for their own booty. They're only concerned about themselves. And so I learned that I need to only hire based off the values, not based off of what their resume might say or what experience they might have. Skills is something you can teach, but values is something that they're bred with. And I need to make sure that we are in alignment there, because all the other things in my business I can teach. Elevation requires separation. At a certain point this year, I started to keep growing. I did a lot of personal development. I did a lot of mentorship and coaching, and I'm holding myself to a certain standard of accountability, and that is forcing me to rise to the ranks, okay? And as I continue to rise, I'm noticing the people that were in my circle that I used to deem as people I was close with are no longer close with me. And that's okay, right? Every single time you grow, you need to expect that you're going to go through a season of loneliness, because you are now outperforming your old circle, but you are not proven yet to enter into a new circle. And so there's moments in my life this year that has been quite lonely, right? And I'm not denying that I wasn't offered opportunities to go hang out and go meet up with people and go to the event or the party or the dinner or whatever, but I wasn't having any appeal to go to that, because I realized I was separating myself. I was elevating at a different frequency that if I even did show up, I wouldn't even enjoy my time, because they were talking about gossiping, right? Like the different types of friends, they were just gossiping or talking about things in the past or talking about things in the present. When I was more forward thinking about, oh, how do I move the needle in my business? And that type of conversation doesn't relate to these people. And I can either anchor myself down to meet them on their level, which is terrible, or I can just accept the fact that this elevation requires separation. So I cut some people off. And it's not like I was rude about it, but I've just slowly started tapering off. And now I'm just looking above like, okay, where's my next group? And understand that I'm going to have to continue to keep rising as an individual so I can meet a certain group. And that's okay. So the next category I want to talk about is productivity. And the first lesson I want to talk about is you cannot scale what you cannot measure. So this one is a little bit more of a vulnerable story. In 2024, I already sold my business and I was becoming that digital nomad. And so I was almost 24 hours a day just sitting behind a computer screen. I would wake up, walk to my computer, work 18 hours a day, and then go right back to my bed and then pass out, fall asleep, and then repeat that cycle over and over again. I wasn't burning a lot of calories. Going from a super high labor intensive company like roof cleaning, gutter cleaning, being outdoors, it's quite laborious compared to moving to the digital space where you're just exercising your fingertips. The thing is, you don't really recognize or realize that you're starting to gain weight until A, you just try to get back into your old clothes and you're like, what the heck, did I put this in the dryer too long? Or number two, you see a photo of yourself, okay? I remember very distinctly, it was a photo of me and my kids and we went to the water park, and so I was topless, and first of all, I realized like, man, these swim trunks are getting tight. But secondly, I was like, who the heck is this guy in the photo? Like, that's a fat guy. This was really hard for me to comprehend because I always have been the athletic guy. I've always been really good at sports and enjoyed sports, and was always the guy that was like the most athletic on the team, whatever. Going from that, I never thought of myself as a guy that was going to gain weight. I always enjoy sports and I always like playing sports, so why would I ever gain weight? I always like to just be active, which was even true when I was sitting behind a computer, but I just never found time to do those activities. And so I didn't afford myself to go to the gym or go on a hike or whatever the case might be. So I gained a whole bunch of weight. Guys, I gained like 20 pounds. And it was entering into 2025 when I saw that photo and I was embarrassed of that guy. I was like, okay, well, like something has to change. I need to get back to my active self. So first of all, getting back into the pressure washing business helped quite a bit. But the thing that actually moved the needle more is when I start to track my progress. Now, I wasn't the type of guy that was like, oh, I have to count every single scoop or I need to weigh my banana or anything like that. The thing that moved the needle the quickest was just me creating a KPI tracker for my calorie intake and my calorie outtake. That's it. So I opened up my ChatGPT, I sent it a prompt, I gave it my weight, my height, my age, yada, yada, yada. And then I would just constantly feed ChatGPT what I ate. I didn't tell it like, oh, I had this many grams of rice today. I just said, hey, I had a bowl of rice, chicken, broccoli, whatever I ate, I just fed it. And ChatGPT was able to decipher approximately how many calories are in each meal. That is very important because I didn't really realize how many calories are actually in a meal until I was able to do that. Right? Like I used to just look at a rice bowl and be like, oh yeah, that's like what, 100 calories? And then you put it into ChatGPT and it feeds you the data. It's like, no, that's like 750 calories. So back in the day, before I was tracking it, I always was being so gracious with the amount of calories I was intaking, thinking, I'm only doing like 1,500 or 1,800 calories, when really I was like doing like 3,500 calories. When I was able to start realizing that, that is when I started to be a little bit more cautious with what I ate and start appreciating the amount of effort it takes for me to burn that many calories. Because I was like tracking, oh, okay, like when I do like 10 minutes of activities, that equates to about 100 calories burned. That's a lot of effort. So do I really want to, eat this chocolate bar when it equates to like 10 minutes worth of activities, 10 minutes of sweating? It made me really value and choose what I was intaking and being a lot more particular, right? So instead of just like, oh, right, I need to go run a marathon every single day, I was just being a little bit more, I was just discerning with what I wanted to put in my body. And that alone, just tracking my data and then allowing myself to discern what I ate and what I didn't eat, as opposed to just eating liberally, I dropped 18 pounds in 30 days. That was crazy. That's like, I was dropping like crazy weight, like almost a pound every 2 days. Okay. And I got back to my athletic self. Now, like, is it my peak fitness? Probably not, but like I got into a fitness routine that I used to match when I was doing MMA every single day. It was absolutely crazy. Like, I didn't increase my activity level. I just measured what I was eating. And it forced my body to go back into a calorie deficit. Anyways, I'm getting off track. It's not a freaking fitness channel. My point is behind this, guys, is I was able to give myself a lot more permission to choose the actions I was doing based off of what the data was saying. It wasn't guesswork anymore. This is the thing that I find a lot of people do, is they live life off of feelings. They make their decisions based off of their feelings. Trust your gut feeling, trust your heart, don't. Okay, your gut and your heart is very deceptive. Okay, it is just basing off of the, more times than not, just the path of the least resistance, when really it is the data that doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. Just when I was able to see the data, I was able to make decisions that actually move the needle. And this is the same process that I've been bringing into my business now. And all of a sudden I can hit these amazing numbers, as opposed to just going into your day thinking, oh, let's see how much money we can make today, but rather having an actual target and then reverse engineering that target of how many actions needs to accomplish to be able to hit that target. I can then take those many actions and break it down into the hours of my day. If I have to do 100 actions to hit my target, well, then if I work 10 hours, then I need to do 10 actions per hour. Okay, you can get into the granular of it, and then all of a sudden that target becomes real. And I was hitting targets. So, man, that was super long-winded. Number 2, discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation is something that I found this year is finite. If you have any obstruction or roadblock, motivation disappears, okay? Motivation can only live in the clear. Like, if you fully understand what the next step is, then you find motivation. Discipline is the skill set that allows you to endure when things are not clear or things are not comfortable. This really was quite huge. I remember Alex Hormozi saying, you cannot be disciplined in things that you enjoy, right? Like, he was describing a lot of people that say, he'll ask a whole bunch of people, like, are you a disciplined individual? And a lot of the people that speak to Alex say, oh, I am with the gym. And then he calls them out and he says, you're not disciplined. You just enjoy the gym, right? If you are only disciplined in one activity in your life, then you probably just enjoy that one activity in your life. Discipline only exists on things you don't enjoy. And this is where that whole cold plunge or the ice baths sort of emerged and got birthed out of, is you want to be the controller and the driver behind the vehicle, right? You don't want having your vehicle, your person, your body say no. You want to make sure that it's your brain that actually says yes or no. And many times your body's like, oh, I don't want to wake up at 5 in the morning. I don't want to work on that project till 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to, work until that hour. I want to get off early. This is your brain that is trying to choose the path of the least resistance. And it's discipline that forces you to actually endure that. And the person who is typically the most disciplined is going to be the person who is able to master the mundane, which is something we were talking about earlier. And Alex Hormozi describes discipline is to be able to do the same action over and over again and not yield a positive result. And I really, that message really sat with me. It made me really reflect, like, discipline is actually closer to insanity than it is to be motivated. Albert Einstein describes insanity as doing the same action over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, that's very similar to like discipline. You're doing the same action over and over again and not receiving a positive result. This was a bit of a mind shift for me because I always thought if you do a certain action, you need to yield some sort of result. Well, sometimes in certain actions, it takes a very long time for you to be able to see the results, right? Well, like I was saying, give time, or be patient, is that sometimes it takes a long period of time for you to be able to see those results. Like when it came down to my fitness journey, for example, after doing one workout routine, I didn't just drop 20 pounds right away. I had to give time for me to be able to realize like, oh, after 20 days, looking at photo 1 versus photo 20, yeah, there is a bit of a shift, right? And that only exists in the realm of discipline. If I only based my decisions off of photo 1 and photo 2, I probably would have gave up. But just trusting the process and putting my weight and stock in that I am not better than the process, that gives me that sense of discipline for me to endure, and then I yield a result after the fact. And that is why it's also very important for you to be able to have some sort of KPI tracker, because you're in it. You're in your own freaking canoe all day long, and all you see is the same surroundings all day, is that you see your paddle and you see your canoe, but you don't see the travel, you don't see the distance you've traveled. So from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, they're little incremental gains, but if you stack them together, it compounds to this massive gain. And this is something that I've really been able to learn this year is, maybe it's debt. Maybe it's your gross revenue. Maybe it's your weight. Maybe it's your relationships. These are all things that are growing incrementally. But if you track it, you can start actually giving yourself some flowers at the end of the, period of, your season or your year, whatever the case might be. You can actually start appreciating like growth actually happened. And that is the thing that actually gives you your reward to make discipline worth it. Number 3, free time isn't free. I found this happening in the beginning of my year of 2025, is that I had a part of the season where I was able to work, and then the weather happened, snow happened, I wasn't able to work again. And then all of a sudden I had this free time. I learned from one of my mentors, if you want to meet the devil, he'll be in the cracks of your schedule. And the time I've done anything good was when I was busy. Anytime I was doing something bad, it was when I had free time. It is very hard for you to actually do something bad in a busy season. Straight up, right? The only time you've ever done anything bad, degeneracy, or, things that are not within your typical ethics and morals that only exist in the free time. That is typically a deviation from what your goals and dreams are. You are only a participant towards your goals and dreams when you're being productive and when you're busy. All right. So I live by a philosophy, like if it doesn't live in my calendar, it doesn't exist. It is really hard for you to accidentally climb up a mountain, right? If you want to consider like the top of a mountain is your goals, it's your dreams, it's your aspirations, it is near impossible for you to accidentally fall up a mountain. You need to be very intentional with you going on the pursuit of your goals and dreams. And this is very reflective that when you have free time, you're not working towards those goals and dreams. You're probably actually deviating from your goals and dreams. And so therefore, the cost of free time is your goals and dreams, right? You're probably that is when I see a lot of people, they might go out to the bar or they drink or they or there's some other bad, terrible things. Yeah, for example, like when someone is a drinker, right? They don't typically drink when they're at work, but they'll drink after work when there's nothing left on the schedule. And I'm not saying like shame on you for being a person who drinks. Just because I don't drink doesn't mean you can or cannot. That's your life. My point is, back in the day when I used to drink, it only existed in the cracks of my schedule, right? When I would work, and if I had nothing after work and it was a complete blank slate, I filled that up with things that was damning towards my goals and dreams. And so the best thing I did to solve drinking, it's not like I ever had a drinking problem, but the best thing I could do to solve drinking was just keep my schedule full. It's not just drinking, just anything that was taken away from my pursuit of goals and dreams is just stay busy. And busy is more than just doing an activity, but it was being productive towards an activity, filling it in my calendar. And this also reminds me of what my mentor also said. He said, you show me your calendar and I will show you your bank account. That was really cool. I like that one. He's like, yeah, people who actually have a full calendar, that usually means they have a full bank account. People that have an empty calendar, yeah, you're probably not a killer. You're not out there crushing numbers. And it's very true. Any single time my bank account rose was when I had a really full calendar. Anytime my bank account dropped, it's when I had an empty calendar. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, well, maybe my business isn't there yet. I don't have a full schedule of helping clients. That's fine. You don't need to fill your calendar with just serving clients. Fill your calendar with any activity that moves the needle, right? Maybe it's writing a script or building out content or filming content or editing content. Just anything that fills your calendar that moves the needle forward, fill your calendar up with it. I look at a lot of people like, oh, can I fit into your schedule? They're like, yeah, what day? And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, what works for you? That is usually a good tell that I recognize quite early that people don't have a full calendar. They don't even use their calendar, right? If they don't even know what the next thing is on their schedule, it's usually quite telling. Now, I'm not talking down on the people I've interacted with. I was that person. I was a person who wasn't using his calendar very much. But when I started to use it, just opening my Google Calendar and just filling in absolutely everything in my day, then my bank account rose. Okay, I learned from I think it was like a Dan Martell video or something, and he was describing one of his clients that they hired a professional scheduler. He said, if you want the most out of your people, the number one excuse that you hear from your team of why they're not being more productive is they don't have enough time. Reality check, we all have the same 24 hours. So why are some people able to do more than others? And then you could just always keep pointing the finger at skill, skill, skill. This person's more skilled at that. This person's just faster because they're more skilled. I refuse to believe that. Rather, the person who's doing more, they're just doing more in the allotted time. And so what the scheduler was doing is they would go individual to individual for one of two reasons. Number one, you get to point your finger at the scheduler for being the bad guy that held you accountable as opposed to the owner, because we already get our fingers pointed at us for everything else. So to be able to alleviate finger pointing, that was great. But number two, the scheduler was able to look at your calendar, take the time allotted for work, call it like a 9 to 5 or whatever, and they divvied up every single moment of that calendar into 15-minute intervals. And they forced each individual employee to actually fill up each 15-minute slot. When once upon a time, those employees would think, my schedule is packed, I am busy all day long, all of a sudden was able to find all these amazing 15-minute slots that were available that actually accumulated to more times available than times actually scheduled for work, right? When you actually break down the numbers, there's like a statistic that more people actually do less work at work than the actual work production, right? Maybe someone is on the job site or they're on the project, but a lot of that time is actually wasted in transition, right? Going from point A to point B, that is where time is getting lost. Or transitioning from task 1 to task 2, or transitioning from tool A to tool B. There's a lot of transition period that actually kills a lot of production. But if you can actually recognize that through your 15-minute intervals, you can actually start batching work together, where you might have used tool A here at the beginning of the day and tool B at the end of the day. But if you just batch them together, then all of a sudden you find this brand new 15 minutes or whatever the time lot is, where you can allocate it towards something else because there's no transition period. It's the transitions that kill productivity. And every single time you start a new task, you open up your phone, you go to the water cooler, you quickly grab a coffee. There's always time wasted because you're focused on transitioning than you're actually just doing the work. One thing that I was also noticing in that video was that you can even start as simple as by just doing 25-minute intervals of an activity and giving yourself a 5-minute break. So that way you can actually refresh your mind every 25 minutes. And that fits into like a 30-minute block, as opposed to doing something and then checking your phone and doing something and then checking your watch, doing something, going to the water cooler, doing something, going asking buddy how was his weekend. Just eliminate the distractions and put them into 25 to 5-minute ratio blocks, and your job is to constantly keep upping the ante, 25 minutes to 30 minutes to 45, 2.5. You get the point. Number 4, more, better, new. This one is probably my biggest rollout in 2025 for productivity. It was really interesting when you actually break down the numbers of what more, better, new means. It was the most yield I was able to get out of 2025. So what the heck does that mean? More, better, new means if you simply just did more of the more that is working in your business, it outperforms all the amazing new ideas that you probably have. New is very common for you as an entrepreneur to start spamming, but it's the thing that moves the needle the least. Jeff Bezos has this thing where he says, I can write 100 different new ideas and have 100 different ideas that can kill my business. Because at the end of the day, you're bored of your business faster than what your customers are bored of, right? Where you think I need to innovate, I need to come up with new ideas. These are new ideas that aren't established to your customer base, and therefore it actually creates distrust or obscurity and confusion, and confused buyers don't buy. This is where like master the mundane also falls into, is that you need to just keep doing the thing that already has a proven model that it works. And if you actually want to break down the granulars, the maths. So let's bear with me here. If I have a 3% conversion on a door knocker, right? I hire a door knocker, he knocks 100 doors and he can yield 3 projects sold. And I have a proven track record. I have years and years of data that actually can reproduce. The bare minimum of an employee can do anywhere between 3 to 8%, but let's be conservative, let's say 3. On every 100 doors, that's 3 door knocks. Now, I can teach that door knocker to just knock more doors, and I can always guarantee a 3% yield. Option 2, I can do a completely new idea that's not tested, that has not been modeled after anything, and just based off of some random innovation that I had a sense of feelies on, and yield a 0% return. Right? Because you need to be able to test it, you need to model it, you need to perfect it, you need to refine it to be able to have predictable results. But most of the time, that new idea is not going to yield any result. And if I do that new idea and actually take away my employee from doing the thing that's already doing 3% return, he could go from 3% to 0%, 3% to 2%. Sure, that person might be able to increase, but through the trial and errors, I've missed out on all that production, okay? Now, the question is, okay, well, how long can you do that? Well, then that's where more becomes just do more. Start innovating on how you can do more, not innovate on what you can do new. And so that makes me think, well, if I can only get this person to knock 100 doors, maybe I then need to hire another door knocker. And add another door knocker knocking 100 doors, I go from 3 jobs closed to now 6 jobs closed if they both just do 100 door knocks. As opposed to allocating that new resource and that new door knocker, allocate it towards something new, which it takes my attention, it takes my bandwidth, and we could yield a 0% return. If I go from 3 jobs to 6 jobs, that is 100% increase. That is doubling your production, right? And then you just keep doing more, innovate more. How many door knockers can I have? How many more door knockers can I have? So let's say we get 10 door knockers. Now went from 3 to 30. When this new idea that's not proven could yield 0% return, right? The next step of more, better, new is better. Before you innovate new, innovate better. Okay, so this is going to be, more is maximization, better is optimization. What is going to move the needle more next is how do I just make those existing door knockers better at their job? Okay, what tools can I give them? What marketing collateral can I offer them? What better script can I offer them? What better way to get to just more doors? These are all the things that I can just then reveal. How do I turn their 3% to 4%? And that would go from 30 to 40 more jobs. If I just increase the percentage by 1 point, I go from 30 jobs to 40 jobs. On a company yield, that's an extra 25% increase as opposed to if I innovated new. New probably wouldn't yield an extra 25% return. The maths, like that is actually crazy when you actually break down the numbers with a real number. You know what, like that one probably went over most people's heads, but like game changer. Like it actually is going to increase your business significantly. Depending on the numbers you work with, like if you have a $100,000 business, you can double it by just simply doing more. And once you've exhausted all the resources for more, and then you get into better, an extra 25% on a $100,000 business is an extra $25,000. What can you do with an extra 25? Guys, like I really hope that one lands. Number 5, impatient action, but be patient with results. This video is literally the proof of me practicing it right now. I am in the 11th hour. It is New Year's Eve, and I am making a video on everything that I've learned this year. Like, this video is gonna come out after New Year's Eve. That's fine, but I am impatient with the action. I've been anticipating on building this video for some time, and I could just, make sure I have a proper backdrop and a better camera and a better lighting and all of these things. But instead, I'd rather just take action, because done is better than perfect. And I'd rather just be able to pump out this video now and then focus on the next one than just me focus on this one video and then realize that when I do publish it, most people probably won't even watch it to begin with. So why am I invested all this time and energy and resources on something that most people won't see? Now, I could always just aim for perfection and get better, or I can just do the reps that gets me better, right? Like, you can't do the perfect curl and get yourself a six-pack. It is you constantly doing curls at the gym, doing the running and doing the sit-ups and all other activities. It is doing the impatient action. The massive action is the thing that gets you the six-pack. You can't just work out once and expect that six-pack. You can't have the perfect gym session and get your six-pack, right? It's just like you can't have the best meal and be full forever. You have to maintain that relationship by just taking massive amount of action and be patient that the results will come, right? Back to give time. You gotta give time to results. Results, if it's worth it and if it's big, then it's worth waiting for, right? Don't expect that it's just gonna happen on the snap of the finger, because if it does, it probably wasn't worth it. And if it was that easy, everybody would do it. And you need to do what others won't do so you can have what others don't have. Number 6, less is more. What's more utility than being disciplined is just removing access to that distraction. Let's say, for example, if you have a drinking problem. I don't know what's up with all these analogies on drinking. I never had a drinking problem, but assuming that that drinking is a deviation from your goals and dreams, and drinking is, nobody enjoys the day after drinking, and it takes you longer to get back to work and to get into your flow because you're hungover and it's not good for your health, all these negative things. Instead of just constantly having alcohol in your home, which it could be a distraction, it's easier to just remove the distraction instead of just looking at it and being disciplined, right? Like, let's say for myself, I have a lot of issues with sometimes getting into a scroll hole. I pump out content. After pumping out content, I'm just sitting on my phone scrolling, and then I snap myself out. It's like, dang, I lost 15 minutes right there. What I've learned that is more effective than just being disciplined with my phone is sometimes not having the phone with me, right? I have my smartwatch, so if someone does try to get a hold of me, I can still they still can get a hold of me with a phone call or a text or whatever. I eliminate the ability to over-exercise discipline by simply just eliminating the distraction. If you have a problem with your weight, just get the junk food out of your house, as opposed to having discipline about always looking at, there's going to be junk food in my house, I'm going to have to keep saying no. What's easier than saying no is you can't say no to something that doesn't exist, right? I don't have to say no from scrolling if the phone is not in the room with me. It's sitting on a charger. You're able to just be a lot more productive if you don't have those distractions. So in that case, less is more. All right, the last category is leadership. And this is the one that I probably should have revealed earlier in my year. I think my 2025, at the beginning of my year, I lacked quite a bit of leadership. And as much as I like to believe I have a lot of leadership and I've been a good leader in the past, I think at the beginning of this year, I wasn't a great leader. So this is one to my younger self. Whether you want to be a leader or you don't, that's fine. This one is for me, my younger self. The first one is be a lighthouse and not a tugboat. If you think of the tugboat will go out to sea, find the ship that it needs to haul, tie itself up to it, and exhaust a lot of energy to be able to move a big shipping container or to move a boat through the Arctic ice glaciers, versus being a lighthouse, okay? A tugboat is typically going to be exclusive to an individual ship. It's going to have to bump into a whole bunch of things. It's going to have a lot of fuel that it exhausts. It's going to be a lot of wasted effort to be able to navigate a single ship. Versus a lighthouse is just propped up and being able to help navigate, using its light to reveal through the darkness to not just one ship, but many. If you think about the lighthouse never moves. The lighthouse is steadfast, it's anchored, and helps navigate many ships through the fog, through the darkness, through the treacheries of the water. It'll help navigate many ships. And this is something that I should have recognized earlier in my year, is that instead of invested all of my energy into just individuals who they themselves may or may not even want it, I could have been more utility to more people if I just open up my scope of range. And I started to realize I was in my ego, realizing like I just wanted to help somebody and see the fruits of my labor more than just being helpful. Man, that actually just hit me, and that was actually pretty hard. I cared more about how I felt with helping somebody than actually even the reason why I was helping someone to begin with, which is just be helpful, right? And if I truly just want to be helpful, then I just need to be the lighthouse. Never move on your motives and your intentions and your ethics and your principles. Just be the lighthouse and shout to the universe, and whoever receives that information, they receive that information. Like a lighthouse isn't worried if there's no boats around them. The lighthouse still shows up, because if there is a boat that goes in the direction of the lighthouse is there. And this is me sort of practicing that preach by me even making this video, because I don't know who's gonna watch this. Most of the people probably already turned off this video if they already started this video, if you got to this point, because this video is gonna be long and most people are gonna be like, who the heck are you? And that is okay. I'm not making this video for just you. I need to be the lighthouse. If I was making this video for just you, I'd be the frickin' tugboat. I'd be focusing too much on the individual vessel when I can go and help out all the people to navigate through the fog. And if anybody moves in this direction, hallelujah. If they don't, hallelujah. That is okay. Me even just practicing on camera, speaking to the ether out there, is even me just getting more reps on how to be a better public speaker. So, heck, I just need to continue to double down on that. There was a lot of wasted efforts when I was mentoring individuals who are no longer in my life even right now. That why did I help navigate this person through the treacheries of the water, and now that person is no longer in my life? Why did I waste all that effort onto them? Which I'm grateful that I was able to be a tool for them, but they were no longer going to be a tool for me. Right? So it's like, and this is the thing, like relationships can be very transactional and they can phase in and out, and that's totally fine. But If your goal is really to do something really big, then you would hope that there's going to be some sort of loyalty. And instead of just investing all your eggs into one basket, you'll find the ones that are wanting to be loyal based off of the amount that they're going to want to reach out to you and the amount of activity level that they're willing to do for you, as opposed to you trying to force people to just be loyal to you. Number 2, define done. This one was something that I wish I learned a lot earlier at the beginning of this year. Okay, so the beginning of this year, I was trying to run before I was able to even crawl. I was thinking, okay, massive action creates massive results. And reflecting on Grant Cardone, Undercover Billionaire, I was thinking like, okay, this guy was able to make a $1 million business in like 30 days, 90 days, whatever. And he had a massive team. And I contributed that a lot of the things that he was able to do was a lot of the things he was able to accomplish must have been because he had a lot of numbers. When really the reason why he was actually able to have massive results with massive amount of staff was because he was able to define done. He was able to define what should done look like. Okay? Going back into my business in pressure washing, I hired a whole bunch of these young kids going out there, banging out all my projects. And then when I was doing a quality control or expecting my manager to do a quality control, and there would be constantly redo after redo after redo, or, just projects that were not even close to being done, but they claimed it to be done. That is a reflection of me not establishing what done looks like, right? I consider, all right, I don't need to define what clean looks like. Something is dirty, something is clean. But that was such a terrible mindset because everybody has a different definition of clean. And this is also the same thing with your clients, that if you're trying to go and provide a service for them, what you have an understanding of what the finished product may look like could be a completely different understanding of what your clients might think is the finished product. So even though you say that this is your parameter of what complete looks like, they might have a complete different interpretation. I remember when I first got my car detailed for the very first time. This was many years ago, and I was like, amazing. I've never had my car detailed before. When I actually received my vehicle, I was pretty upset. Not because I didn't get a great deal on my car detailing, but rather I didn't understand to what degree they were going to detail my car. So they washed and cleaned the exterior of my vehicle. I was under the impression they were going to also do the inside of my vehicle. And so my reality didn't meet my expectations. But if that company simply just told me, hey, this is a detailing of your exterior, not, hey, we're going to go into the inside of your vehicle and clean the cup holders that have a whole bunch of crumbs in it, I probably would have been able to digest that information and been okay with whatever I was getting to begin with. Well, reverse engineering that and me now being the person who's doing the detailing and my customer is now the buyer, I've realized that I need to really establish the lines of what done looks like. When I go and clean a roof cleaning and there's moss up on the roof, and after I demoss it and spray it with chemicals, there's always gonna be little microbes of moss on your roof. Like, I'm not eliminating 100% of the moss. I remember having one of my clients go up on the roof, going up on the roof to inspect the work, and looking at every single crack of his roof, saying, oh, there's moss here and there's moss there. But if I just established early what done looks like for us, he would then be under the impression of, okay, well, there's no reason for me to climb up on your roof. If done looks like this, then he's knows what he's buying. Equally as with my employees. If I can show them what a finished product looks like, they can then model after that. But other than that, they're just modeling off of what they deem as clean. And let's be honest, no one's going to be as passionate towards your project than yourself. And so what you hold as an expectation should always be typically higher than all of your employees. So where I deem as a certain threshold of what we need to accomplish, they're going to be like 60% of that. And so therefore, yeah, there's going to be redos, there's going to be upset customers, there's going to be upset employees because you're just sounding like the Nazi that's just constantly like, oh, clean more, when really all of that could have been prevented if I just set a baseline of what done looks like. So then that way at the end of the day, we can check mark what done is, and done occurred based off of these metrics, based off of what it looks like, as opposed to just, hey, go get it done. Number 3, be the last to speak. I often find a lot of leaders think that they are a leader because they have a lot of wisdom to speak into their people. And as much as there's a lot of truth to that, you're a leader because you have tons of experience, you're a leader because you have tons of reps, but there's also a reason why the best leaders are leaders. Isn't because they speak, it's because they listen. I heard this twice from people that I look up to. The first person was Simon Sinek. He has a whole book on it. And then Patrick Bet-David. And they say, be the last to speak. One of the reasons why you want to be the last to speak isn't because you already speak so much and all of your people are so tired of listening to you, but rather because you don't collect all of the data points until you're the last person to speak. You always hear that ratio. It's like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you should speak. Sure, if you want to use that rule of thumb, it's, Mickey Mouse, cool. More importantly is you might be saying something that is shooting yourself in the foot, right? Once you say something, you can't take it back. I remember this time when I was working on a project and it wasn't met up to the right expectation. And so when I went to that employee and just immediately got mad at them, it's like, oh, why is this not done? You were supposed to get it done 2 hours ago. We're behind schedule, blah, 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 blah. When really, if I just sat there and listened first, I would have received the data points that, oh, you didn't get it done because we ran out of gas. You didn't get it done because the equipment broke. You didn't get it done because X, Y, and Z. You look a lot less like a fool when you are the last person to speak. You collect all the data points. You can now decipher those data points. And if the thing that you wanted to say to begin with is still relevant, then bring it up. But typically, a lot of those things will shape based off the information you're received, and you become a lot more of an effective leader when you're able to just preach the information that is more senior based off of what the data points are versus just going trigger happy, being a maverick, just shooting everything down. So I found that I was able to be received better by my employees when I was always the last person to speak. Number 4, don't be a seagull manager. I admit that there was times this year that I was a seagull manager. What's a seagull manager? If you think about the bird, they only show up when there's food on the table. Once there's food on the table, they hover, they squawk, they annoy the heck out of you, and they shit all over the place. They get their food and they leave, okay? There is a lot more seagull managers in this world than actual proper leaders in this world, right? They go in, they just always looking for things to just criticize and shit all over the place. And then after they do that, they leave. I admit that I was that manager a couple times this year, maybe more than a couple times, where I would come in and instead of recognizing the things that got done, I was only recognizing the things that I could shit on. And I would be like, this is messed up, this is fucked up, this is broken, this is that. Why the heck is nothing going right? And overwhelm myself to the point where I was like, fuck man, I just gotta go. I gotta leave, I gotta go land more business, whatever the case might be. Understanding that, I have changed my mentality Criticism should be done in the private, not the public. Praise should be done in the public. Criticism should be done in the private. I have changed my mindset that any single time I manage a group of people, I will go around and take a mental inventory, write it down, of all the things that are fucked up, give praise to the things that are working so I can reinforce by using a positive mechanism, creating a positive habit loop for them to keep doing that positive thing, but take a mental note, an inventory of all the things that are broken, and then take them out on an individual after the fact. Have a dedicated time, a dedicated day, a dedicated slot, so it seems more like this is just part of routine. Nobody wants to be shit on all the time. So if you can just dedicate a certain day and a certain time to be able to do the shitting on, it looks a lot more like criticism and healthy, constructive criticism than you just being the fucking seagull manager just shitting all over the place all the time. That just creates a lot of resentment. Nobody wants to work for that seagull. Nobody likes seagulls, right? So dedicating a certain day to giving all the feedback, giving a dedicated day for even the managers so that the manager can have certain dedicated feedback loops is going to do a lot more better for your employees than you just always pointing out every single little thing. People don't take that feedback very positively. And I get it, you want to nip things in the butt right away, but if that is at the cost of embarrassing them and making them feel shame or guilt, I promise you, it's not going to toll well for your business. If you don't train them, you can't blame them. This is very similar to define done, but it goes a little bit further. It's just making sure that you can just take anything that happens that is at a fault and just take the blame for it. When you are adjusting the mindset that it's my fault versus just their fault, if it is your fault, then you control the realm of being able to solve that problem. And I often realize most of the issues that happen in my business is simply just because they weren't trained at that thing. Typically, after an effective amount of training, they typically do it right. But if there's a lack of training, don't expect it to go right. I can't expect someone to know if they've never experienced. And so that gives me permission to create a model that creates a healthy duplication. Document, demonstrate, duplicate. The 3Ds. When I document the process and then I demonstrate what that document is explaining, then it gives permission to the employee to duplicate that action. But if you don't document it or you don't demonstrate it, then you can't expect them to duplicate it. Training only exists if they have a formal documentation that they can always reference, something that they can always index and reference, how do I do XYZ? And then they get a demonstration of what that looks like. Until that is accomplished, you can't assume that your employee is trained. If you even want to go to the further extent, get them to sign off that they actually receive that information. But typically, if you do that process, duplication starts happening. Most of my training at the beginning of the year, I didn't have it in formal documentation form. Most of my training at the beginning of the year, I was training somebody to do it, and then I expected that person to duplicate what I was training them. But really, my manager, I was just pouring into him how to do it as an employee, not how to repeat it as a leader. And so I was getting mad at my employees that, oh, why you're not getting it done, when really I didn't even train my manager effectively on how to be a manager. I was just training my manager on how to be an employee, how to actually do the contracted work, how to be the contractor or the technician, not training my manager on how to be a manager. So the fault in that line was I wasn't training my manager, and my manager therefore was being a bad manager training my employees. And I can't blame anybody because I didn't train them. Number 6, you do what you do best and let others do what they do best. As a brand new entrepreneur, you're always going to be wearing a million hats. You're going to be the salesman, you're going to be the technician, you're going to be the contractor, you're going to be the HR, you're going to be the PR, you're going to be all of the different levels of your business. As you start yielding more resources, you can start allocating different hats. I find a lot of entrepreneurs staying in the category of solopreneur because they believe that this is my baby, and baby it is for you, but you don't give the permission that there's going to be people out there that are better than you at some things. And in fact, people are going to be better than you at most things. The thing that you're good at is the thing that you're good at. And that's probably why you got into business to begin with. You were a mechanic or you were an electrician and you were working for a company and you're like, I'm the best electrician in this business. Why do I work inside a business when I can break off and start my own? That is the e-myth, that is the fallacy that a lot of entrepreneurs get into. When really a good entrepreneur is a person who can allocate, not a person who hoards all the different positions, because you're an individual, you don't have the bandwidth to do everything. And if you do, you're probably not a very efficient business. This was something that was in my business earlier this year when I started to give myself a little bit more permission to give out jobs. Like if anybody really knows me, like I am really good at sales, I'm good at marketing myself, but maybe I'm not very good at my numbers, or I'm not really good at organization, or all these minor granular things. And I started realizing that the amount of time it would take me to go and do those activities, it just took me away from doing the things that I was already good at. If I went and built out my email campaign, I can get onto my CRM, build out an email and make the graphic and all that, where it might take me like 4 hours. But if I just handed that project off to somebody else, they can get it done in like 30 minutes. And I could then free up my bandwidth of those 4 hours to go and just knock more doors or make more jobs, sell more projects, shake more hands. And the amount of production that I can yield from door knocking would outpace the amount that I would save from spending money on the email campaign. And so this is where that principle comes from, is that if you focus simply on more of the things that you're good at and start handing off the things that you're not good at, the business actually flourishes because you're actually doing the thing that moves the needle more. It's not that random email campaign that takes you 4 hours that's going to move the needle. It's going to move the needle, but it's not going to move the needle to the point and capacity that you're able to accomplish doing the thing that you're good at, which is shaking hands or whatever the case might be. No one is going to be able to sell your business better than you. You're the one that's passionate about it. You're the one that knows the ins and outs of the business. You know what the deliverables are. You know what the problems may arise or not arise, and you're gonna know how to handle those objections better. But when you start taking your bandwidth off of that and just focusing on the things that most people won't ever see, like your IT or your the back end of your website. Most people won't see that. Your customers won't see that. So when you spend all your time and attention on that, you're actually doing the marketplace a disservice, because you're probably going to be reaching out to less people, therefore getting less jobs, and therefore your competition is going to be scooping all of the competition up. And if you truly believe that you're providing a better product than they are, you're doing a disservice to the marketplace, because you're not taking on that business where you would treat that customer better than your competition. You can only grow your business if you allow others to do what they do best and you do what you do best, period. And that brings me to my next point, is you can be the best at something, but you can't outperform everybody. I look at this as, at some point, as much as I am the best door knocker in my business and I'm the best closer in my business, I can't outperform everybody. So let's say, for an example, in my door knocking business, it is typical for anyone to be between 3 to 8% close rate. That is going to be an extreme if someone's at 8%, but assume anywhere between 3 to 5% is a healthy average salesperson. I'm going to be closer between 8 to 10% close rate. If I am knocking 100 doors, I could land 10 projects, which is amazing, and I can feel all high, mighty, and glorious about that. But even at a 3% closer, if I hired 4 guys, they would outperform me. So as much as I can outperform any single one of them any single day of the week, I can't outperform more than 4 guys. It only takes 4 guys to be able to outperform my yield. 4 guys landing 3 jobs each is 12 projects, when I can only at best land 10 projects a day on 100 door knocks. This was very interesting because there was a moment in my life where I was constantly cutting people, cutting good talent just because they weren't performing to me. And I was constantly trying to refine their scripts and make them better and better and better, which I guess falls under the category more, better, new, is I was just trying to constantly make them better when I could have focused more of my energy and resources on more. Just get more knockers. So even if they were between 3 to 5%, if I just get more 3 to 5%, more 3 to 5%, it keeps compounding, as opposed to just making one person move from 3% to 4% or 4% to 5%. It is, you're damning yourself if you're just thinking nobody can do it better than me. That is simply just your ego speaking. It is saying, I want my ego to be groomed that I'm the best and no one's going to be better than me, when that's very much true. Hallelujah. Good job for you. But you just focusing that you're the best and that no one can do it better than you, therefore you shouldn't hire people, is such a poisonous, insidious thought on your own business, and you're really going to throttle what your potential could be. Is that so many people I work with, they're like, oh, I'm the best at my job, so therefore I could never hire. Okay, and just because you're the best and you will be able to be the most productive per unit of people in your business doesn't outweigh the fact that your business could grow. And so instead of just trying to refine everybody to be the best you, just have a whole bunch of micro 60% yous is going to be able to outperform the one exact carbon copy of you. And the last one is do what others won't do so you can have what others won't have. There's a reason why you're in your position. The position of CEO, owner, operator, director, whatever the case might be. And that's just simply because you're willing to do what others won't do. If you were doing what everybody else would be doing, first of all, you wouldn't be watching this video. And secondly, you just be an employee. You would just have an employee mindset that I'm going to clock in for 8 hours and get paid for 8 hours. That is the majority. And that's awesome. I'm happy for those people. The world thrives on employees. The world needs more employees. I'm with that. But if you truly want to elevate yourself and be an entrepreneur, then you need to accept the fact that you're going to have to do what others won't do. And what that might look like is doing less. What that might look like is not going to the party. What that might look like is you're burning the candlestick on both ends of the candlestick, right? Like you might have to wake up early and you might have to go to bed late. You might have to not watch that brand new movie. You might not know what is happening on Stranger Things or whatever is relevant when people are watching this. You might have to just do more. But that is also going to allow you to receive more for what is actually going to get you closer to your dreams and goals. Right? One of the things that I learned from one of my mentors, he says, how much are you getting paid to forget about your dreams? Right? Everybody, that small young little boy or girl when they were growing up, they wanted to be an astronaut, or they wanted to be a doctor, or they wanted to be whatever the case might be. And then eventually they got a paycheck that made them feel like, you know what, this is good enough. And they get to cash in all their chips and accept that this is the position that they're going to be. When really, that dream could still exist. They just didn't really recognize what hard meant. And when things are really challenging, tough, you need to just give yourself permission. This is just what hard looks like. You just didn't think it was this. Because what you deemed as hard wasn't actually hard. It's your new baseline of comfortable, right? And you get to pick and choose what hard looks like. You get to actually suffer by not accomplishing that dream and goal, which is a hard pill to swallow, or you get to do the hard work, which might involve you waking up early and going to bed late. And you get to invest all of that hard energy, those units of hard now, so you can live a better life later, or you can just live life on easy mode, which is your 9 to 5, and then live life hard because you have to work for the rest of your life. Doesn't matter. You get to pick and choose your poison. I would rather put in the efforts now, especially when you really think about it. It's like, I already know that the memory in the brain is flawed. So if you think about when times are actually hard, it is actually just a moment or a slice of a memory that actually gets stored in your brain. It's not the whole time it was difficult. Like, for example, if you remember a moment where it was like, man, like I was in so much pain there, right? Like I remember this one time I had a pain in my wisdom tooth, and it was like growing, and it was a terrible feeling. But how I remember it, it's just a split little moment of a thought. I don't remember the days upon days upon days of pain. I just clump all that pain as just wisdom tooth pain. Now, I bring that up because anything that you're enduring right now that you deem as challenging, fast forward 5 years, it's just going to be a glimpse of pain. Now, it might suck now in the present, but I promise you in the future, fast forwarding, you don't have to relive that pain. That pain is just going to be condensed into a memory, a lesson, a thought, not something that you have to wear on your back for the rest of your life. If anything, it's going to give you permission to learn these lessons so that you can never make that mistake again. And on the flip side, if your memory is flawed on the bad things, it's also going to be flawed for the good things. So the thing that you deem that like, oh man, I need to go to that concert, or I need to go to that party, or I have to go to that wedding, or whatever the case might be, that is also going to be condensed into a single memory that just gets stored on the shelf of your brain, where you won't have that sensational moment for, oh man, it was such a great night. It was 8 hours of good night. You don't memorize 8 hours of good night. You just memorize that was a good night. You don't remember every single waking moment of that amazing day. You don't think, oh, that concert was so good. Do you remember this song and this song and this song when he sang that and when he did that? You just think that was a good concert. My point is, when you look at the world through that type of lens, you start realizing that you can start making a little bit more sacrifices. You're willing to do a little bit more. Because at the end of the day, when you just do a little bit more, you get a little bit more back at the back end. Whether I'm the most skilled or the most talented or the most whatever in my business, the one thing that you can't doubt me on is the amount of effort I'm willing to put into something, the amount of work I'm willing to perform. I am willing to sacrifice units of efforts because I have been proved many times that I get something positive on the back end, that I yield some sort of positive result on the back end. It gives me peace of mind that at the bare minimum, regardless if I'm skilled or not, that I'm just willing to do a little bit more. So that means if someone is outperforming me or someone that is more talented than me, I will be able to keep up, if not outperform them, based off of the amount of units of effort. And that is the one thing that we all have control of, is the amount of effort you put into something. Maybe you didn't have the best education, maybe you didn't read the same books, maybe you didn't have the best mentor, maybe you didn't have all the money in the world. But the one thing that we all can tap into, and it's the cost of free 99, is effort. Just putting in more work. Right? It's that Kobe mentality that you're willing to work out twice before the person even wakes up. That you can do a workout at the beginning of a game and the end of the game while so many people are just showing up for the game. It allows you to just get more reps in. And it's those reps that chisel the sculpture a little bit more to just attack your skill so that you can just get better and better and better and better. And then at the point when someone starts recognizing that that is where the magic sauce lies and they start actually putting in effort, they'll never be able to keep up with you because you've been doing it for years as they're just starting it right now. So even if they were to be putting in these reps, you're growing at the same rate, if not more, because you're just doing more. This is the mentality that I really put most of my stock in, because I just know for a fact most people are comfortable, most people are lazy, and they're just not willing to do it. And I just constantly think, what are other things that I can do that they won't do? And that gives me permission to go do it. Like, I get up on roofs knowing that height is a limiting constraint for most people, that most people don't like height. Okay, cool. So that already puts me in a smaller category of one than the others because I'm actually able to defeat the fear of height. I never liked heights from the beginning, but I got used to heights because I just realized height is a big constraint for people. The second thing is risk. What are other risk factors? What is my adversity to risk? Most people don't like risk. The more comfortable I get with risk, the more I get rewarded for risky opportunities, because rewards reward people who want to have risk. What are some other things? Door knocking. People don't like door knocking. They're afraid of it, but I'm willing to do it. So therefore I'm able to yield what they're not willing to yield. Public speaking. It's like the number one or number two fear that people have, and I'm willing to do it. Dude, there's times where I do public speaking still, and I still get super freaking nervous regardless of how many stages I've been on, but I'm just willing to do it because that is the thing that just moves the needle, because there's a lower threshold of being able to separate yourself when just no one's in that marketplace. When there's nobody there, it's just easier to separate yourself from the bunch when you're just doing something different than doing something more talented. And this video right now is proof, point, case that I'm willing to do what others won't do, because most people aren't doing a introspective reflection of their 365 days. They're going to go entering 2026 doing the exact same shit that they were doing in 2025. And instead, I'm making this video so it's something that I can reflect on so that I don't have to repeat shitty behaviors. I'm willing to look at myself and be honest with myself that, hey, 2025 was fine. It was good. It was great. I had awesome moments, but could I be better? Most people aren't willing to hold themselves accountable and document it and then publish it on a public domain. Most people won't do that, but I'm willing to do that because I want to get better. I want to be a better version of who I am tomorrow than I was today, and better today than I was yesterday. And when I make these types of videos, I get to hold myself accountable, because fast forward in a couple days, weeks, months, I get to reflect back on this video and be like, yeah, I was shittier last year than I was this year based off of these lessons. And next year, I'm gonna make another video and I'm gonna look at this video and be like, man, who the heck was this guy? This guy sucked. And that only exists when you're willing to give yourself permission to do what others won't do so you can have what others won't have. In order to be extraordinary, you need to be able to do extra of what the ordinary is willing to do. You can't just do the same amount of level of activity as the others, because you will only be able to yield the same amount of results they're willing to do. Right? Even if you just change your activity level to replicate who is better than you, they already have like a 10, 15 year start on you. So you're only going to be able to grow incrementally at the same rate that they're outpacing. You need to double that. You need to triple that, quadruple that, so that you can start condensing the gap. And then when you get to the level of being able to meet them, you're going to be able to outpace them. And when they start recognizing that they are getting outpaced, even when they change their behavior, you're doing 4 times the amount of work, and they're only going to be able to micro increase their productivity level. So they're never going to be able to keep up with you. Like, that is where my mind goes. And I know that probably didn't make sense to most people, but like, that makes a lot of sense to me. And it doesn't need to make sense for you, because I didn't just make this video for you. I made it for a future version of me and my past version self. So anyways, do what others won't do so you can have what others won't have. So I hope that if anybody made it to this part of the video, fuck man, go get it. Do more. Do what others won't do and live a better fucking life. Happy 2026. Be great. Peace.